Hey everyone. What if a car could turn into a robot? What if a boombox could turn into a robot? What if a vending machine could turn into a robot? I'm guessing that's how the story was pitched. Today's book is the novelization of the movie Transformers by Alan Dean Foster. That's right, a man so confident in his writing, he didn't bother with the pen name.
And this is the book pile.
I'm Kellen Erskine. I'm a comic, a father, and as someone who's almost 10 years older than Dave, he will never understand that at one point, Transformers were cool.
And I'm David Vance. When I watch a Michael Bay movie, I think, I just want more exploration of these complex characters. I want to learn about their rich inner lives. So I am thrilled about this book.
And we would be thrilled if you could transform your thoughts about this podcast into a review. Lady Catherine DeMore says, since you like to read, I wrote a book for you. Hint, it's this review. Chapter 1. Just kidding. She says, great podcast. I love the humor and that it's clean but still funny and intelligent. I also am editing this review a day after I wrote it because I just finished doing the book pile marathon and listened to all 118 episodes. Wow, that's awesome.
Wow.
As she puts parentheses, besides, and then there were none, and the Hound of the Baskervilles, because I don't want to spoil it for myself. And that's something that I do encourage. I wouldn't want anyone to listen to an episode where we spoil stuff before they read the book. But I also have a hard time believing that a woman named Lady Catherine DeMore has not read Sherlock Holmes.
The Hound of the Yeah, she's for sure the murderer. This is her alibi.
I even listened to the 2-minute one where Kellen shares a fun squirrel murdering story. Okay, to be clear, it wasn't fun for me. The story might be entertaining, but that makes me sound like a psychopath. But yes, thank you, Lady Catherine DeMore. Madam Lady Catherine? I don't know how that works.
Your Excellency. All right, same reminder as last week. We are posting these episodes on YouTube. The link is in the bio, and we would love to hear what you think of them.
So I admit I chose this book this week, and I went into it hoping that it would be as ridiculous as the movies. And then I was blown away by the degree at which he gifted me of how much worse it was than I thought it would be. I know that we'll be getting into this in detail, but in a nutshell, Foster writes this book in a way that I used to write, like on in-class essays in school, where I would just sort of try and clump enough big words close together so that the teacher would sort of get lost in them and figure out her own meaning so she wouldn't catch that I didn't know what I was talking about. Like when I was done reading this novel, I was like, did I just finish a book or a pile of Mad Libs? But what did you think, Dave?
My main question right now is I'm so curious who he wrote this for. Is it for kids? Is it for adults? Right. Why does he take the most childish story and dress it up in the snootiest language?
And that's what I want to know too. Like, if you are like the type of person who is a diehard Transformers fan, how many of them, first of all, know how to read? And of those, which ones are going, I love this movie so much, I really want to be able to just sort of read it and then use my imagination.
You know what's cooler than seeing a robot turn into a car is not seeing it.
All right, and without further ado, this is the roast of Transformers in 4 lessons.
Okay, lesson 1. Use a thesaurus capaciously. Kellen, I have a brain teaser. What do you do if your dream was to become a real novelist, but then you got assigned to write the Transformers novelization? The answer is you use all the biggest words you know. Here's the part where they find a Transformer frozen in ice. Mouth, eyes, these he recognized, but there was also much that was inhuman and bewildering. Projections of unknown provenance, appurtenances of purpose mysterious. Why is he writing like Cormac McCarthy? It's like reading No Country for Old Transformers. Remember, this is a book about a movie about robots turning into cars. They for sure only made it because it would sell lots of toys. And the author uses the word provenance 3 times in this book. Have you ever in your life heard someone say provenance? Another part, Sam is upset because he's about to buy a car from a junkie dealership, and the author tells a joke. A momentary vision of immolating himself in front of the Porsche dealership was discarded as pleasingly dramatic, but of decidedly short-term efficacy. Boy, did I laugh. Nothing makes me chuckle like fancy words. As Rodney Dangerfield said, the esteem and regard of my fellows is an entity of which I receive but a meager helping. Sometimes the author tries to impress you with random intellectual tangents. Michaela Baines was emerging from the water. Got it? With you so far. At that moment, Sam would have gladly traded Botticelli's Birth of Venus for a photo of Michaela striking a similar pose. That is, he would have if he had known who Botticelli was. If you're a third-person narrator, remember, the main character is always you.
It's like instead of breaking the fourth wall, he's pulling back the page and you just see his face and he's like, if he was as smart as me was.
As Dean Foster.
And obviously, like, there's always value in wording things in a way that we've never heard them before, but I don't like it.
Is there always value?
Okay, not constantly, but if you're going to do it, at least have it make sense.
Sure.
Again, speaking of the used car salesman, he says, his lower jaw headed in the direction of southern Brazil as he gaped at the vitreous devastation. It's like, you could just say his mouth hung open. So was he laying on the ground with his ears facing east and west? It doesn't matter. His chin was heading towards southern Brazil. Picturing a map is hilarious.
You know when like a really old man, like when an 80-year-old man has like his hair dyed blonde and he's spray tanned, and reading this, it's like, stop fighting what you are. You write novelizations of blockbusters.
Here's another one. It's not even a big or fancy word. It's just using it in the wrong place to try and sound smart just because it's multisyllabic. He says, Glenn Whitman answered his desk phone. This entailed setting aside the wireless mouse he had been manipulating. And it's like, oh, was he toying with the mouse's emotional fears?
He was gaslighting it.
Is that what it entailed, Dean? My last 2 favorite ones. When Sam is trying to do his hair with gel. No more or less greasy than any other overpriced petroleum product, guaranteed to turn nerdy wimps like himself into sleek, rock-hard visions of irresistible male pulchritude.
Oh, no.
And I admit, I mean, he got me here. I did not know what pulchritude meant. But it's like, I want to know what this book would have sounded like if they forced him to write the whole thing alone in a room with a typewriter. I think the whole thing just would have said, he used gel to look handsome for the girls.
Footnote, add fancier language when they let you out of this room.
And if I could just add my own 2 cents to your lesson, not that I'm the Obi-Wan of comedy writing, but the advice that I give young writers is that the more you rely on tools other than your own brain, the more you deny the world of your unique voice. Don't use a thesaurus. It'll only make you sound unnatural. If big fancy words aren't part of your normal vocabulary, you're not going to sound like yourself. You're just going to sound irrefragably distracting. I don't use Google, whether I'm writing jokes or even writing out one of these podcast points about something I've gleaned from a book. I don't touch the internet. Not that I gleaned anything from this book other than how to impress women with a Camaro. Sure, Google's fine for research, but I think that too often it's just used as a writing shortcut for stuff you could have thought of on your own. I attribute my ability to fire back at hecklers with the fact that I've been writing jokes off stage for years, never relying on external tools to do the work for my brain. So there. Feel free to unplug and hone that unique, splendiferous mind of yours.
My one pushback is you saying that you don't sound like yourself, because after this book, I would recognize this author's voice anywhere. So I leave you with the moment of the first kiss, as Sam thinks what any boy would think when kissed by his crush. Oh well, he mused, as all other incipient thoughts died a-borning. Homina, homina.
Wait, what was that last one? Aborning?
A-borning.
What does that
I
mean?
had to look that word up. While being born or produced. I've never heard anyone use that word.
So then I think I would add an addendum to the overall lesson, which is don't use a thesaurus. But if you do, then at least also use a dictionary. Because I don't think he knows what half of these words mean. He just hit thesaurus and was like, that's the longest choice.
Yeah, maybe he had to make a page count. I never even thought of that. It's not DNA, it's deoxyribonucleic acid.
Achieving this word count is such a laborious endeavor.
My brain is in Brazil.
All right. Lesson 2. Give us something the movie didn't, but not this. So this is closely related to Dave's last point, or should I say David's ultimate apex? Like I said earlier, I do think that the one thing a novelized movie could do is at least give us more insight into the character or the story, but nope. However, he does let us in on some things that weren't evident in the film, but they still do absolutely nothing for the story other than make it longer. So here are a few of those insights. He sees this clown that's spinning a sign on the used car lot, and he says of the clown, his amateurishly applied face makeup was melting in the hot sun. Sam knew just how he felt. He was melting inside.
No.
What does that even mean? He wants this car, so his insides are melting? It's just occurred to me that maybe the insight was that he has diarrhea.
Just as the face paint ran like diarrhea down the face of the clown, so too did diarrhea run like face paint within Sam.
Here's another one. This is when he introduces the main military character. That William Wild Bill Lennox had risen to the rank of captain was almost an accident of military history. And then he never explains the accident. He just keeps going.
That is a great writing shortcut. Yes. Anything you don't want to explain, you call an accident.
Here's another insight that you didn't get from the movie. He writes Sam's sarcastic thought process when he sees that this car his dad wants to get him has an 8-track player in it. He says, having left his collection of 8 tracks at home, parentheses, not. Here's another one. Wondering what could be keeping his son, Ron Witwicky sat in the car and checked his watch. Sam was far from faultless progeny, but he was commendably punctual.
Characterization.
Yeah, again, we didn't get from the movie, so credit where credit's due.
As soon as the film ended, I was like, but what kind of progeny is he? Faultless?
You could just say he wasn't perfect, but he was always on time. No one's going to read that version and go, what, did this guy just graduate kindergarten? So here's another one. Speaking of Sam Witwicky's high school teacher. Hosni turned unexpectedly reflective, staring off into space as though a genie might appear and whisk him away from the four-walled torpor in which he found himself imprisoned. I think this might be the most honest thing in the whole book because I think Alan Dean Foster is writing about himself. It's like
He's painting from life.
depressed, pauses from his laptop just long enough to shake his fist at the window of his home office. This four-walled, he thumbs through his thesaurus, torpor.
All right, lesson 3. Have great romance. Here's how he introduces the love interest, Michaela. The girl on whose outline his gaze fell was Michaela Baines. She was a screensaver made real. What a compliment. What does that mean? Like, oh, she's so beautiful. She's like sand dunes.
She's like when all those pipes sort of just keep connecting themselves to each other.
Beautiful beyond description, mesmerizing of voice and gesture, and utterly, utterly out of his league. Then he describes the other guy, his rival. As if that weren't enough, she was seated beside her current paramour, one Trent DeMarco. Mr. DeMarco was fashioned of muscles, jaw, and attitude, all jock all the time. Then he tells another joke in the longest way possible. Unfortunately, Sam had concluded resignedly, there were at present no state or federal laws that he had been able to discover to prevent creatures like DeMarco and his ilk from reproducing their kind. Score 1 for the devolutionists, he muttered silently to himself. If ever there existed an irrefutable argument against intelligent design, it was seated across the room alongside Michaela Baines. There's this thing Hollywood does where they're like, hey, looks don't matter. That's why a normal guy like you can land bodacious babe Megan Fox. If looks aren't everything, why does it matter that you only get the hottest girl? Like I'll believe that message when you show me 2 ugly leads. It's like in Hairspray when they're like, get rid of repressive beauty standards so you can land smoke show piece of meat Zac Efron.
I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but this is my problem with Beauty and the Beast because the lesson is so temporary.
Yeah.
If they really meant what they were saying, he should have just stayed a beast forever.
Right.
But they get married. Because the lesson there is if you can tolerate an ugly dude long enough to get to know him, he'll turn hot.
Another thing in this book is it's not clear why we should be rooting for Sam because he's kind of a tool. He gets called to the front of the class, embarking on a march no less painful than that endured by the prisoners of war at Bataan. What? Thousands of murdered POWs. That's the fun pop culture reference for this kid's book.
Again, this is when Foster is like, asterisk, I know this reference. Sam wouldn't.
He made his way to the front. Along the way, he was showered with derisive laughter from teenage girls who had not yet succeeded in suppressing the germane giggle gene that usually faded in women once they reached adulthood. Gee, why wouldn't a girl want to be with this guy? The writing is so flowery. Picture these lines coming from Mr. Darcy in The Rain. Miss Elizabeth, I have struggled in vain and I can bear it no longer. You are a screensaver made real. I have fought against my better judgment, the inferiority of your birth, Trent DeMarco, all jock all the time. I love you. And your unsuppressed girl giggle gene. Then Optimus Prime pokes his head under the gazebo and makes kissy noises.
All right. Lesson 4. When novelizing, double down on what didn't work. If novelization is a word, then I'm assuming I'm using the verb to novel correctly. So
Yo novelizo. Tú novelizas. Nosotros novelizamos.
So obviously art is subjective, or in the case of these movies, complete garbage is subjective. So in my opinion, the reasons these movies don't work for me are simply because they don't give me a reason to care about anyone. Their motives are shallow. The plot is, like you said, Dave, too silly for adults, but the content is oddly too serious for children.
Yeah.
So here's a quick example of each of those things. My first one covers the first two: shallow character, lame motive. So in the movie, Sam Witwicky is a teenage boy who likes girls and wants money to buy a car. That's who he is.
That's his Myers-Briggs.
So in the book, instead of using this literary opportunity to maybe add some depth, the author makes Sam a teenage boy who really wants to buy a car so that he can get girls. If it already made you as uncomfortable as me to watch this underage teen drool after another one, here's a line from the book that was not even in the film. This is Sam explaining to his dad about cars and women. Quote, "Try and understand this, Dad. The right car says to girls, get to know me, touch me." And then he's referring to these cars his dad wants to buy for him. "These cars say, run away from the spaz. A car needs to say, want something to drink, baby? Not the Pepto-Bismol's right here in the cup holder." It's so bad for so many reasons. Like, aside from just being a meat-headed frat boy monologue, this author is also the person who ruins it for the rest of us adults when we're pleading with our kids to trust us because we were teenagers once too. When he writes stuff like, let's see, what would a 16-year-old say? Oh, I know.
Right.
Run away from the spaz, dude.
There's a different part where Sam makes a list of 4 things he needs to get, and it says 1, get car, 2, get new car stereo, 3, get new paint job, 4, get female passenger.
Ugh.
Like, yes. Just 4 attainable objects.
And that's not in the movie either. That's what's so wild
man.
to me, is that instead of the author using this as an opportunity to smooth over some problematic lines from the movie, he was like, yeah, I think the screenwriters were on the right track. I'll finish this for them. So my third point, the plot too silly for adults. I was trying to imagine if this movie and its characters had never existed, how would this book had been received on its own? Like, I still don't think it's receiving any Hugo Awards for science fiction with passages like this about the storyline. And speaking of these strange symbols that keep showing up, though easy to see in the surprisingly sharp old photograph, they made no sense to Sam or Mr. Hosney, just as they had made no sense to the doctors who had attempted to treat Archibald Witwicky, just as they would have made no sense, in fact, to anyone on Earth. So, as an adult, again, if the cartoon and movies had never existed, you're walking through an airport and you do a double take at the mini bookstore. Like, hold on. Transformers. You flip to this page and you're like, okay, I'm in. Who is this? Faulkner?
All right, random facts.
So here are the Rotten Tomatoes scores of the Transformers movies in chronological order.
Oh, boy.
I'm not going to say the full title of each one and give it respect, so I'll just go down the list. Transformers 1, 58%. Transformers 2, 20%. Transformers 3, the one with John Turturro, 35%. Transformers 4, the one with Stanley Tucci, 17%. Transformers 5, the one with Anthony Hopkins, 16%. The newest movie comes out later this year, and with this pattern, I predict it'll get negative 11%, and it'll star Daniel Day-Lewis.
No. Oh, wait. You're making up that last part.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Just because of these, somehow they get like Tucci and Anthony Hopkins.
I'm so stupid that even though I know Daniel Day-Lewis is retired and is so selective with his roles, for a millisecond, I believed you that Daniel Day-Lewis is doing a Transformers movie.
You know how you fantasize how you would spend your money when that Powerball goes over $1 billion? I would love to be able to go to someone like Daniel Day-Lewis and be like, hey, I want you to be in Transformers. And he's like, are you kidding? And I'm like, how about for 20 million? He's like, no. And then I'm like, how about $1 billion, Daniel Day-Lewis? You can give it all to charity. I would be doing like a live Instagram story with him. And he's like, all right, I better get my silver face paint. Guess I'm going to be a method robot for the next 9 months.
Yeah, who would you make him play?
I would make him play Optimus Prime because Daniel Day-Lewis is so amazing that by the end of it, he would be able to fold himself into the shape of a truck.
You get one of our greatest living actors killed because on the way to set, he went sprinting along the highway.
Just imagine that dramatic moment, day one of shooting, where everyone is like, hey, where's Mr. Lewis? And then in the corner of the room, you see this form, and he's going, on set, the humans will call me Optimus, even during lunch.
Yeah, at Kraft, he's just chomping on batteries. The Autobots scanned all of the internet to learn English, but they still don't know super obvious words. Optimus Prime says, "Did you look within the oblong clothing storage device?" There's no way he learned oblong before he learned dresser.
Yeah, what is he? The author of this book?
Right. They step on his mom's flowers and say, the brightly colored weeds will be replaced. It's like Hilaria Baldwin pretending not to know words in English. They're like, I know you know the word flower.
I lived in Brazil for a couple of years as a missionary, and I came across a couple other Americans who would try and pull stuff like this. Like, you can barely speak after a full year of Portuguese immersion.
Right.
But this one dude, after maybe 5 months, he's writing a letter, and he's like, hey, what's the word for garaging again? Which is the word for garage in Portuguese.
Oh my gosh.
So the first Transformers movie is actually the 1986 cartoon Transformers the movie, which actually gets 62% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is more than any of these. And it was PG, and if you're my age, you've seen it and heard the S word in a cartoon.
Wait, so the Rotten Tomatoes scores, isn't there one with like Haley Steinfeld that was actually really well reviewed?
That's the Bumblebee one. It's like a spin-off. It's not really canon, Dave.
Optimus Prime is supposed to be smart, and he sees these characters and starts speaking Chinese to them, which means he's smart enough to learn Chinese and smart enough to know it's the most common language on Earth, but too dumb to know he's in the US looking at white teenagers.
So again, if I'm understanding Optimus Prime's character correctly, he's fluent in multiple languages, but you still have to be like, and this is a flower.
I'll put it in my garaging. Wait, no. My dad has always said that when he hears a gringo speak Spanish, if he can understand it, he knows it's terrible Spanish.
So Dave, you know when you have like 3 upside down cups on a table and you hide a ball under one and you switch them around? To me, that's what Alan Dean Foster's name is. It could just work in any order. Oh, here's a thesaurus thing that I forgot to mention earlier. Quote, with cosmic tardiness, a glimmer of recognition dawned somewhere beneath her perfect hair. I was like, what does that even mean? Cosmic tardiness? Outer space lateness? She obviously wasn't as commendably punctual.
Yeah, whose progeny is this?
Someone that I would definitely born. So this last one for me isn't really a random fact. It's just a random rant. I do think it's funny when defenders of crap like this are like, yeah, but it made more money than you ever will. And it's like, yeah, that's not my argument. Like my argument is that if I don't care about anyone, I'm not going to care if they're in danger. And that's when an action movie becomes boring, no matter how much action is happening. To me, the fun happens in the narrow escapes with characters you love. It's Indiana Jones sliding under a falling stone door. It's Lando Calrissian flying out of the Death Star a second after it explodes. It's me filing my taxes at 11 p.m. on April 18th. The point is, it's a pointless debate. It's as if the Transformers apologist thinks the conversation's going to go like this. They're going to say, yeah, but Michael Bay made $10 million. And then I'm going to be like, oh, I'm sorry, you're right. It is a good movie now. And also, if you love Transformers, great. I'm clearly not trying to change anyone's mind.
We kind of are, though.
This is just supposed to be fun for the billions of us who agree that these movies are uninteresting, wasted opportunities on what were just fun toys.
All right, this book could also be called Provenance.
This could also be called Transformers, when a book is better than the movie, but they still both suck.
This book could also be called Altering Transmogrifying Transmutators. All right, to recap our favorite lessons from The Roast of the Transformers. 1. Use a thesaurus capaciously. 2. Give us something the movie didn't, but not this. 3. Have great romance. 4. When novelizing, double down on what didn't work.
And 5. Sometimes reading doesn't make you smarter.